Okay, so it's important to remember that your hips are more important than your hands. So every time you're throwing a punch and when you're moving, it's not just about getting your arm out there and having the proper body mechanics, upper body mechanics. It's about understanding that all of your power is generated in your hips and the way that you're turning your hips. And the reason that is because you're turning your hips based on the ability to plant your feet and rotate your feet and move your feet in a way and then drive through the ground and up through your hips and up through your body and through your arm into that punch. So for example, when I'll use a hook, right? If I'm throwing a hook, an arm heavy hook, right? This is a lot of people, they muscle through it and they try to put their arm in front of their hips. Meaning when I'm throwing the punch, they try to, I'll look at this, just to help. They throw the punch, they try to push their arm. I'm even turning it's hard for me not to turn my hips. They try to push their arm through the punch. They don't have any body mechanics. And so they, right? And they're doing this like arm punches and they're trying to just use, a lot of men with big upper bodies try to punch with their upper bodies, not realizing that someone half their size can literally punch 10 times harder if they put their hips and they drive through the ground. So when you throw a proper hook, for example, even being just squared up, I'm turning my leg that I'm throwing the hook off of, right? And I'm driving, like pushing off the ground, and I'm turning my hips into the punch, which takes my arm, and it takes my arm like a rubber band, and it whips it through the punch.
You know, when I watch you with your two-handed sword, I've noticed that like when you're squaring up to hit someone, it seems like your hips are going first and it's kind of almost coming around after.
So hips before hands is what they say for power. So when I'm throwing a hook, right, you'll see, right, you can easily pick this 100 pounds up off the ground just by turning your hips and whipping your body through that, right? Instead of just pushing it with your arm, right? It's a hard smack, because everything you're doing is manipulating the concept of force equals mass times acceleration, right? You can't increase the mass of your hand, of your fist, or of your weapon or whatever. The only thing that you can increase is the acceleration. So the faster, it's not the speed, right? It's not the constant speed that matters. Remember that. It is not the constant speed of the punch that matters. It is not so that helps, right? 1,000-mile-an-hour punch is gonna hurt way more than a 20-mile-an-hour punch, right? But force equals mass times acceleration. So acceleration is a change in speed. So the higher the change in speed, the more exponentially increased impact that punch has. Meaning, that's why they tell you not to just punch through a target, right? You're punching through a target for a multitude of reasons, follow through and the other aspects of physics and how inertia works and all those other things. But one of the big pieces is acceleration is half of the equation for force, right? And so you really want to understand that the more your punch increases in speed, the more power that you have in that punch. So that's why you throw it, to get these hips through, because just like the end of a sword, you want it to whip. So when you're standing here and you're doing these drills, right, I'm doing this to create tension in my arm, and by driving my elbow down and pushing this out, and go ahead and do it again, right? Just holding that out, right? Do you feel the tension in your muscles, right? So you're creating rubber band tension, because when you turn it over at the end, right, and you turn it over at the end and you pop your shoulders in with that step, all of a sudden, for that space right there, you have intense acceleration. So you want to hit it right in the middle of that, right at the peak of that intense acceleration.